In the past few weeks, I've completely changed the way that I use Cursor and AI coding, and I've come up with a system that makes using AI significantly more effective, a lot cheaper, and reduces about 80% of hallucinations, AI loops, and the cost of burning through AI tokens. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I built this entire app that turns short form content and generates animated B-roll for each individual scene in my video without me having to write any prompts to get the AI to code it for me. I'm also going to show you some tips and tricks to get much better results from using Cursor. So let's get started on this video. When I first started using Cursor, I would be writing prompts like this, just trying to get the AI to build me some features, just filling it out with text and information on what it was that I was trying to create, and then just hoping for the best. You may also be doing the same thing in tools like Lovable, Bolt, Replit. The problem that was happening was it was just generating me a whole load of different code files, and I didn't really understand what it was creating and where all of the files were going. This is exactly the same thing that happens when you use tools like Lovable or Bolt or Replit, just it's a lot harder. So example, if I come into Lovable and I say build me a calendar app, like a lot of you guys are doing without following a plan, I will just get something like this. It's a pretty ugly design. I can't really go ahead and create events. There's no way of sharing them with friends. There's no landing page and there's no user accounts. If I try and add in more complicated features, instantly things will break and I will get errors, and you end up burning through lots of AI tokens. You guys have probably seen the same thing, right? Now in tools like Lovable and Bolt, it gets a lot more complicated because you're not instantly seeing which code files are being created. You can come in here and you can look at all of these code files, but it's very hard for a complete beginner to understand what each of these files do and which files are the ones that need to be edited. Now this kind of works if you're building a small MVP, but as soon as you want to build a production ready application like this software here using AI, the process of just randomly prompting the AI like this is not going to help. So what do? Well, the next step in Cursor would be something like this, explaining to the AI to go ahead and create you individual files and explaining which files to create. You would go in and say, I want to make some change in the code base, and you would actually tag the individual files that you would like those changes to be made in. Now, the reason this is a lot more effective is because the language models that you're using have a limited context window. So by going in and saying, code me this new feature, what you're asking the AI to do is go through every single file inside your code base and literally just say to it, figure out where these files are and what changes need to be made, because I don't understand any of this stuff. Now, like I said earlier, this is perfectly fine with a simple little app like this with very small amount of code, but as soon as you try to get more complicated, that context window can only take a certain amount of information. Okay, so for example, if I've got 50 or 100 or 200 files in here, there is a very, very high chance when I ask the AI to code me some specific feature inside my app, it's not going to be able to find the files that it needs. So a lot of the time it will end up just recreating a file even though it already exists in your code base. And if you don't understand the structure of your code, that's just going to lead to you having a lot of duplicate files, and obviously that's going to lead to a lot of bugs appearing in your code, and you're not really able to fix it because it just creates this never-ending problem. So in order to be able to prompt like this, we need to be able to understand what files are being created. We also need to be able to understand which files have been created in the past and which files need to be changed in the future. But again, this requires you having some sort of technical experience. So what do we do if we don't have that knowledge? So this is where using this product requirement docs strategy works. And you may have heard of product requirement docs in the past. They are essentially a list of instructions on how to build individual features in your app. You would, for example, just say to the AI, well, we're going to build this feature, and instead of you writing out all the descriptions on how that feature should be built and which files should be created, there's a requirement doc for the AI to follow, which in theory makes things a lot easier. There's a lot more structure and the AI is able to follow a recipe for your build. The problem with this is, in order to create a requirement doc that has the necessary information, you need to describe the technical stuff required to get your app built, right? We need to explain, for example, which files should be created and where they should be put for the specific feature we're trying to build. We should explain which back-end features need to be created, what those features need to do. We need to explain, for example, how the database works, and there's no way of doing this if we haven't got any technical knowledge, right? We can't just go in and write a requirement doc ourselves. And this is what leads to most people using something like ChatGPT and get it to create us a requirement doc. We would say, I'm trying to build an app that takes a raw short form video and makes me B-roll frames for this video. Generate me a requirement doc. And you can see it does a okay job. It comes up with the features, it describes the solution we're trying to build, but it doesn't really have a full understanding of how our app should should go together, okay? The AI is just going to take this information and it's going to come up with a suggested tech stack. And this tech stack may not follow what we have in our code base. For example, you can see here it's saying front-end Next.js, it's come up with a back-end Node.js and Python. Well, that's not going to work for my current code base, for example. It's using image generation DALL-E 3, which is an old, out-of-date image generator. It's got absolutely nothing in here about databases. Now, we could use something like ChatGPT o3, a more advanced reasoning language model, to create us a requirement doc for us. But just by throwing more compute at the problem, we're not necessarily going to get a better output. Yes, there will be more details in this requirement doc, but again, we don't know if this is going to have the correct technical information that's going to work with our code base. And again, here you can see it's using DALL-E 3 for the image generator, but actually maybe we want to use GPT Image 1, the up-to-date image generator you have in ChatGPT, for example. And again, it's done absolutely nothing about describing how the files should be created, where they should be put, the databases, all of the different bits of tech that should be used. So in order to get a requirement doc out of ChatGPT or Claude or any of these language models that's going to be good enough, we have to be able to give it a good enough prompt initially in order to turn that into a requirement doc. In other words, we would need to describe the tech that's needed, we would need to describe the file structure, where we want those files to go, what we want those files to do, and describe the database, for example, all in our initial prompt to get ChatGPT to convert it into a requirement doc, which is completely pointless because if you don't know that stuff in the first place, then you're never going to get a good result. And if you did know that stuff, you might as well just send it directly into Cursor. So how do we actually get around this problem? Well, if we actually use our CodeSpring account, what we can do is we can take our prompt, something like this, with a list of the different features, and we can ask it to create a plan for us. It will go ahead and it will write out all of the different features. So for example, with this app here, we're going to have a video transcription tool, some sort of prompt generator, image generation, and then also some sort of video output and downloader. Now, it's also going to figure out from that the tech that's required in order to get this done. And all of this tech is actually trained off a specific boilerplate. So if we actually come into a CodeSpring course or come into the assets section, we have this boilerplate starter template, which has got pretty much all of the code that we need already set up. It's got all of these file structures set up, it's got user accounts set up, it's got payments already integrated in it. So what CodeSpring will actually do is it will describe the list of features that we need, and it's also going to describe the tech that's required to build those features, but it's going to pick tech that works with the CodeSpring boilerplate, meaning we don't have conflicting files. When things are going to be built, we all know it's all going to fit together perfectly. And obviously for individual features that we're creating, CodeSpring is going to figure out what to use for that. So for example, for the image to video generator, it's come up with Runway ML. For the image generator, instead of using something like DALL-E 3, it's used GPT Image 1. So now we actually have a mind map that we can plan what we're trying to build. We can actually go into each of these features here, and you can see what CodeSpring's already done is actually planned out a description of each of the features and how they should work, including things like user journey and the workflow. And we've got this with every single individual feature inside this. Now, once we're happy with the plan that it's come up with, what we can actually do is come to here and just click on Generate Requirement Doc. So instead of having to write these manually or go to ChatGPT, what this is going to do is it's going to use all of the context and information for each of these individual features with the information on the rest of the app that we're trying to build and generate requirement docs for each individual feature that we know are going to be accurate and that we know are all going to work well together. We know each of these features are going to work with the CodeSpring boilerplate, and all of these requirement docs will be generated from this tech, will be generated from all of these notes that we've already taken. And we can come into the video transcription tool, for example, and we can have a brief look through the requirement doc that it's generated. It's described the user journey and what the user needs to be able to do for this feature to work. It's described the technical implementation, for example, how the database needs to be set up. You can see here in our ChatGPT product requirement doc, there is no mention of database or file structure at all, but CodeSpring has figured that out for us. It's already described the server actions or the API endpoints in order to be able to actually create the video transcription actions. It's gone into a lot of detail about the structure of the components, what the UI elements are that we need to build. And actually what we can do is we can take all of this information and give it directly to Cursor to build it for us. You can actually come in and you can see for each individual feature, it's created a PRD that's tailored for each individual specific feature. Let's say we come into this one, for example, we can actually look at the context that it's used to generate this requirement doc to make sure it's not hallucinating and it's only using correct information. So for example, it knows the tech that's being used, it knows how many features we're trying to build, and it's actually trained this entire requirement doc off this tech stack here, and it's using these notes in order to create the document. The notes that it's using will be this note here, the prompt generator, and the to-do list, which are obviously linked to our prompt generation feature. So each requirement doc is uniquely tailored to each individual feature. So what we need to do now is we literally just need to go in and download each of these requirement docs like this. We can just select those requirement docs and dump them directly into a folder, meaning we can just go in and say, build me this app. And we know for a fact that each one of these requirement docs is not only tailored specifically to this boilerplate, meaning the code that it's going to create and the files that it's going to create are going to be accurate. We also know that it's going to describe how to create the database. We already know each of these documents are tailored for each other to work. We know that this is going to build us a cohesive app. So we can just send this directly to Cursor and it's going to have a much better chance at building us the app that we want. If we then don't like something that it's created, we can just come back into one of these features, for example. We can update the notes on that feature, and then we can just simply regenerate the requirement doc for that specific feature, copy the result, come back into here, delete everything that we have and update it with the latest information. And that then means we can build much better applications just by using product requirement docs generated using CodeSpring based off a specific boilerplate and based off a tech stack that we know is going to work. And we can do this with as many apps as we want. We can plan them out just by using AI, create requirement docs for each of these features. We also have a progress board, so we can track which features that we've built, if they're in progress, and when they're completed. So if you want to build apps a lot quicker using AI, using Cursor, and you want to make sure that the apps are production ready, they're not going to be full of bugs, you're going to save a lot of time and money, definitely go ahead to the link down below in the description and grab a CodeSpring subscription. If you grab a CodeSpring subscription, you get access to the full mind map planner, so you can plan out as many apps as you want. You can track the progress, create requirement docs. I've got loads of tutorials on this YouTube channel showing you exactly how to use it, but there's also the CodeSpring Academy with loads of courses teaching you how to get set up with all the different tools. For example, we're going to show you how to build and create your database, how to get set up with GitHub, and actually get set up with the tools like Vercel for deploying your app. We're going to show you how to actually use Cursor, give you all the information that you need on prompting, tagging individual files, and understanding how the software works. We're also going to show you how to set up the boilerplate. Now, they've already got user accounts set up, the dashboard's already been created, and in fact, this app here is built on top of the CodeSpring boilerplate using the exact system that I've demoed you so far in this video. Then inside the CodeSpring Academy, you're going to get a full course showing you how to build a full note-taker app on top of a CodeSpring boilerplate using the CodeSpring system, showing you how to set up and create accounts, building databases, linking to GitHub, deploying, and getting it working on its own domain. And as an added bonus on top of all of that, we've actually got a slideshow feature, which means you can automatically market your software once you've built it by using TikTok carousels. You just select the project that you've built, do some market research, select a theme for your project, and with one click you can generate TikTok slides to post to market your software. Currently, if you go onto CodeSpring and you upgrade, it's £59 per month for the first 100 users. Cannot guarantee that price is going to stay there forever, so if you are interested, go ahead, click the link down below in the description and grab yourself a CodeSpring subscription. Now, I did say at the beginning I was going to give you some tips on how to get much better results from Cursor. So the first thing we need to do is actually understand the code base and the file structure. Like I said at the beginning, if we just go into Lovable and we prompt it and hope that it's going to create us something, we're never going to have an understanding of each of the files, each of the folders, and what those files do. And again, if you get a CodeSpring subscription inside the courses, we're actually going to show you how the boilerplate works, and we're also going to teach you how those files are structured as well. The other thing that's really useful is understanding which language models to use for which specific cases. So I'll give you a quick example on this, but we have a video of this on our YouTube channel at the moment. For example, Gemini 2.5 Pro is incredibly good at writing code. It's a very precise model, but it's not so good at creating UI. So if you're interested in making something that looks really nice, that actually looks like it's got a good style to it, you want to be using something like Claude 4 Sonnet. If you've got a really complex problem, something that you can't solve, you want to add as much context to your prompt as possible, you want to be using something something like Claude 4 Opus. Now bear in mind this is going to be a lot more expensive, and actually it's going to give you very good results, but it's quite expensive to run. The other thing you should get used to is creating cursor rules. Let's say, for example, we are trying to add a complicated feature to our app, and we spent a little bit of time generating requirement docs using CodeSpring. We've given them directly to the AI, and it's given us a result that we're happy with. What we want to get used to doing is actually inside our prompt is using /generate cursor rules and telling it to create a rule, which is essentially a requirement doc that Cursor creates for that specific feature that you've just built. So it's much easier for you if you're trying to debug or work on a problem in the future. Essentially, you've just got a list of rules for each of those features. So for example, if we're trying to bulk generate images or use something like GPT Image 1 generation inside this tool here, then we've already got the instructions on how to do it. We've saved our progress. So if we go back and we make any tweaks, then we have a requirement doc on that specific feature. It's a really, really powerful tool to get used to using. The other thing is useful is know when to add documentation for better results. Now, if you actually have a CodeSpring subscription and you create your requirement docs from CodeSpring, it already will go ahead and read some documentation for you for the specific tech that's needed for that feature. But what I recommend you do is also come into the settings inside Cursor, come down to indexing and documents, and you can see here we can actually add documentation for all of the things that we're trying to build. So for example, if we come to OpenAI docs and we take their official documentation, we could copy this link here, come into Cursor, click on add doc, paste it in here, and what it's going to do is it's going to give Cursor the up-to-date information from OpenAI or whichever platform or tool you're trying to integrate with. And you can actually then, in your chat, you can tag with the @OpenAI, and you can see this top one here, or in fact this one here is the official documentation for that thing you're trying to integrate with, which basically means Cursor now has the ability to read the requirement docs from CodeSpring, for example. It has all the technical implementation on how to add the feature, but it can go ahead and read the documentation online if it needs to give it the up-to-date information on how to add that feature. It's a hugely powerful feature. And the final thing is stay organized. This is hugely important, and that's one of the benefits of using a CodeSpring subscription is you can actually create to-do lists. You can track which tasks are currently in progress, so you know when you've finished a feature you can just drag it to completed, and it just makes it so much easier to keep track of what you're currently building and where you are. You can go ahead and add detailed notes to each of the features that you're creating. We've got a list of to-do lists, so you can just tick things off as you're going through. It just makes it so much easier to know what you've implemented and what you haven't and what still needs to be done, because sometimes it could be a few days or a few weeks before you hop back into a project and continue trying to build it. So I hope this video was useful. If you would like to see more about how to use CodeSpring to build apps, we have plenty of tutorials on our YouTube channel. We actually have 3 tutorials as of filming this video showing you how to build 3 separate apps using CodeSpring with the CodeSpring boilerplate. So definitely go ahead and watch each of these. In this one, I'm going to show you how to build a bank statement converter that converts any bank statement PDF into a CSV file that you can edit and download. In this one, I'm going to show you how to build a full Trello clone so you can organize and track all of your projects, much like what you have in the progress board here. I'm going to show you how to build something like this. We also have a tutorial showing you how to build a full logo generator app as well using the CodeSpring subscription. So if you'd like to grab a subscription, the link is down below in the description. If you have any more questions or any other video ideas, don't forget to leave them down below in the comments.